So I'm just going to quickly talk about some of these lesson plans. Number 12, if you have MLM, network marketing, business categories in your BNI chapter, I strongly recommend that you go through this material. I'm involved in network marketing. I've been a fan of network marketing done well for many, many years, but I've also seen the dark side of MLM. And as we say in the workbook, webinar number 19, which I'll just go to, good idea or scary thought. Okay, so we're not going to get into this material today, but if MLM is something that you're trying to maximize the opportunity and minimize the downside, that's good stuff for you to check into. We go to lesson plan 13. This is important stuff on the chapter level. So the Power Team report card, basically what it does is gives you best practices for how you can be a leader at the BNI meeting. It's more about being a Power Team networker in the context of the BNI meeting, more so than internal to the Power Team itself. Lesson plan 14, Power Team Online. This is really a very specific drill down into some of the more advanced levels of systematic visibility, 5, 7, 9, and 10, that have an online application. Okay, but for today, we're going to get into lesson plan 15 and talk about growing the Power Team. Okay, so right now we're talking about growing the Power Team. In your workbook, I believe we're on page 47. We're going to talk about how to attract visitors, how to talk to visitors, some script dialogue type stuff for inviting people. And then we're going to put ourselves in the shoes of visitors, get into a little psychology so that you can do a better job of connecting and converting. And then we're going to go over one of my favorite techniques called the information table technique, which has been very powerful in my experience for converting those visitors into submitting applications. Again, the material that we cover is on one of the webinars from the DVD set. In this case, it's webinar number 22, Attract and Convert More Visitors. All right, so we're good to go there. Let's dive into page 48, Attract and Convert More Visitors. So the power of intention, okay, we talk about it specifically in the Money on the Table book, in the chapter on growing the Power Team. It really starts with knowing what you're looking for. And so you can use the worksheets in the directory, the Connector to Creator directory at the back of the Roadmap workbook, to look at who the Golden Goose referral sources are for the key situations that your chapter is looking to build power teams around, and identify open categories that would be a good fit for your power teams. So we start by knowing who you want to invite. And the roster success worksheet is also beautiful for helping us do that. But let's quickly go through the material here and make some sense of it. So you've identified the people that you want to invite. Now, where do you find them? Okay, so we've got 5 ways to attract more visitors, and we're going to focus on the first 4. Number 1 is talk to people you already know. Who are people that you know, like, and trust in these business categories? It's a good candidate for possibly becoming a visitor to your BNI group. Now, I will say that there is a dual-edged sword with inviting your friends or family, okay, because this is about business primarily, okay, and we're going to be holding people accountable. And as we've talked about, the famous saying from Dr. Meisner is the best thing about BNI is that we all become friends. And the most challenging thing about BNI is that friends don't like to hold friends accountable. So if you do invite people you already know that you're friendly with or family members, be clear with them that this is a business group and people are going to hold you accountable. And I love you and our relationship is number 1. So there is a chance that if you're not performing, your category might get open because I'm part of a very serious group. So be careful on inviting friends or family, but definitely talk to people you know and give them a clear expectation of what will be expected of them. Now, we'll just keep moving through here and then we'll get into a couple other things. More than likely, you'll be talking to people that you were referred to by people you know, okay? You're going to talk to people who you know, and more than likely, you'll be referred to a lot of business people who were referred by people that you know. So, number 3 is do the mingle. Get out and about and talk to new people wherever you are. Okay, you're going to go to mixers, you can go to any type of event that you enjoy, all right? If you enjoy art, you can go to the museum, get out and talk to people. Strike a common note, break the ice, and ask them what they do. Now, they may or may not be in a relevant category, but the idea is that you get out, you talk to people, you know the business categories you're looking for, and you can implement number 4, which is the oh, by the way technique. This is an extremely powerful technique that can turn any phone call and any live interaction into a team building event. And I'm going to show you some of the language that we can use for the oh, by the way technique. It's a very simple technique, and it goes something like this. You have a phone conversation with a friend, a family member, a client, a customer, a vendor, anybody that you're talking to. You can complete your conversation, and then at the end you say, oh, by the way, before I let you go, I'm part of a networking group and we're looking for a florist to send referrals to. Do you know anyone in the florist business who's looking to build their business? Okay. Oh, by the way, now that I've met you face to face at the museum and we share an interest in Impressionist art, I'd like to ask you a question. I'm part of a networking group and I'm looking for a florist to pass referrals to. Do you know anyone in that business? So the oh, by the way technique really becomes how you talk to people you already know, particularly when you're asking for referrals. And you can do that when you're out and about, or you can do it on the phone. So if I am in your chapter and I'm serious about turning around a troubled chapter, a challenged group, or part of a power team that's looking to go from good to great, I'm going to hold myself accountable. How many times did I use the oh, by the way technique this week? And if the answer is 0, well, you can, look in the mirror and say, well, that's why I got 0 results. Or if you are really being proactive, you should be using the oh, by the way technique a couple times a day, every day. Okay? Let me give you a real exciting insight into how this works. I'm going to guarantee you that if you use the oh, by the way technique 3 times a day, 5 days a week, you're going to bring more visitors than you could ever imagine. If you know the categories you're looking for and you use the oh, by the way technique a few times a day, you're going to dramatically increase the number of visitors that you're bringing to the chapter. Now, I get excited about this, so I'm going to make a related point. If I can get you to ask 3 trigger questions a day, okay? 3 trigger, what's your biggest challenge with the key situation you're going through? What's the next big event coming up for you, right? Trigger questions, we've talked about them a lot. If I can get you to do that 3 times a day, your referral activity is going to go through the roof. It's a pretty simple formula. 3 oh, by the ways, right? And 3 triggers. You do that every day of the week, you're going to be shocked at how productive you're going to be. Okay, so anyway, that is the top 4 techniques or ways to attract more visitors. Cold calling is something that I don't recommend at this point. I've actually had tremendous success with cold calling over the years because of different circumstances where the word of mouth bogs down, stalls out, and we need to extend into cold calling. But for your purposes, we're not going to go there right now. I want to give you a very simple line that you can use to transition from identifying a prospect to invite to your meeting, from identifying a potential visitor to collecting an order, if you will, asking them, are you interested or not? And it goes something like this. I'd like to introduce you to my networking partners. These are people who I know, like, and trust, plus they might be good referral sources for you. Would you like to join our meeting as my guest? And then you tell them when and where you meet. Okay, so this is a very simple line that you can see on page 49 to make that transition from identifying and warming up a prospect to actually inviting them into your meeting. If you see in the workbook, we're also referring you to Chapter 11 in the Money on the Table book. We've got extensive dialogues and best practices for inviting visitors and building your network. Okay, so definitely refer to Money on the Table for a lot of dialogue specifically on inviting different types of people into the network. Okay, so now we get into 5 questions that visitors ask themselves at the meeting. Number 1 is, will this group provide the structure to create referrals for me? Okay, they're going to be asking a question, can I make money with this group? Right? Can I make money with this group? Will the group provide the structure to create referrals for me? And that's where BNI has its strength, is in the structure. Okay? So this is one of the first questions that a visitor is going to be asking. Number 2, is anyone having success here? And so the idea is that visitors have questions when they come to the meeting, and the answers to the questions has a lot to do with whether or not they submit an application. So they're asking the question, is anyone in the group having success? And the key variable that they're going to pick up on is the number of referrals being passed at the chapter meeting. Okay? Just trying to get into the head of the visitor. Number 3, will I be able to build relationships with the people in the group? This is where the notion of being a visitor host, everybody's a visitor host, comes into play by making people feel welcome. And I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. Here's another thing that goes through somebody's head. Number 4, will I be too nervous to talk to the whole group? Okay, that's something that they're going to realize once everybody sits down and we start going through the Sales Manager Minute, Salesforce Update, Infomercial, whatever your region calls it. Think back for a second. Think back to your first BNI meeting. You remember sitting down, the chapter president starts with the opening comments, and then they get to the point in the agenda where they go around the table and people talk about what's a good referral for me this week. Well, whether they realized it or not, they start to see a pattern that people are standing up and talking. The person next to them then stands up when they sit down, and it's, you know, the group is playing the wave, right? And the wave is getting closer and closer and closer, and they start getting nervous. You remember that feeling? Well, put yourself in the shoes of the visitor and make them at ease, okay? Because when it comes to the third question, will I be able to build relationships with the people in the group, your ability to address number 4 is going to go a long way. I always try to make it a point with visitors to let them know what to expect when it comes to standing up and helping them focus on keeping it short and sweet and not necessarily talking to the group about your background and everything else, but focus on what you're looking for so we can find it for you. Okay, so that's number 4. And then number 5, the visitor is going to be asking themselves, will I be able to find referrals for the people in this group? And so that's why when we're inviting people based on the strength of the chapter, if it's a florist or a caterer that we're inviting, and our chapter is strong in the business builder key situation, this helps the prospect understand what the target market is, makes it easier for them to feel comfortable that they'll be able to find referrals for the people in the group. Using the key situations makes it easier to recognize each other's target markets and pass referrals. So these are the 5 questions visitors ask themselves at the meeting that I'm hoping you'll be able to give them the right answers that they can arrive at themselves by using some of these techniques that we're talking about. So I'm going to wrap up this section, quickly go over the information table technique. Okay, it's a lot of intentional focus and activity to get a visitor to attend. Okay, different statistics around the country, but many times it's 50%. You know, 50% of the people that you invite are going to show up. I do have a foolproof technique, though, a foolproof, 100% guaranteed technique to make sure a visitor shows up at the meeting. Okay, here it is. Pick them up on the way to the meeting. Stop by their house, pick them up. 100% of the visitors that you use that technique with will show up. Other than that, we really want to treat each visitor very well. We want to make them feel welcome and special. And so the information table technique starts with you understanding that everybody's a visitor host. Okay, so picture the BNI meeting and a visitor walks in. The appointed visitor host and any other associate hosts are all busy with people, and in walks this visitor. Okay, so it's your job to approach the visitor, identify yourself, extend a warm welcome, handshake, find out about them, get their business cards, and go through the process that your chapter does to register them and whatnot. But what you want to do as the visitor host is identify the visitor's business category and contact sphere. What business are you in? Okay, obviously if there's a conflict with a current member, this is where that gets filtered out. But assuming that it's an open business category, you move on and say, okay, you are in event services, all right? And we can use our old friend, the tendency matrix, and say, okay, you're in event services. Your number one key situation might be getting married, and you can also be relevant to the business builder or the new baby key situation. So this is a note that you're taking because you know how to use the system. Visitor walks in, they're in a contact sphere. That contact sphere has some tendencies in terms of where they can do their business. Your job is to identify somebody in the group who could be a golden goose referral source for them because they share the same key situation. Okay? If it's a florist, you would try to match them up with an event services business category in your group. If they're a business coach, you try to match them up with somebody from business services, or at least somebody who they can pass referrals to based on that key situation. The idea then is that you take the visitor to the information table first to brag about the Power Team partner and give a compelling testimonial. What I don't want you to do is get into a deep dialogue with the visitor about yourself and your products. I want you to ask them questions about who they are and what they do, identify their contact sphere, introduce them to somebody in the group that could be a good referral partner for them. But before you walk them over to that person, you bring them to the information table. Now, the information table is where you have flyers, trifolds, brochures, samples, promotional products, whatever it might be. Near the front of the room where the visitors walk in, this table is dedicated to collateral material. You walk the visitor over to the table and you give a compelling testimonial for the person you're about to introduce them to. You hand them the collateral material for the person. Now, for some reason, I'm not a psychiatrist, but I know that it works. There's a certain power when you do this testimonial privately, just the two of you, that's much greater than if you give the testimonial once you're standing in front of the person you're introducing them to. I'm not sure why it works that way, but it does. And so the key point here is take them to the information table, hand them collateral material from the bragging buddy you're about to introduce them to, and then give that compelling testimonial. Then you walk them over to your Power Team partner and make that connection. Now, if you were able to say to yourself, you know, this visitor is a great candidate for my business, I have something that would be of value to them, you do that, you make that visible during your Salesforce update, during your infomercial. Okay, I strongly advocate that you prepare your infomercials the night before. You know what you're going to say when you wake up in the morning. But if a visitor walks in that you weren't expecting that's a prime candidate for something you do, I recommend that you change on the fly and give your Salesforce update relevant to the visitor. I'll give you a super quick example, make a long story short. There was a particular meeting of my BNI chapter where I was prepared to talk about income producing property. As a realtor, I had a listing of an apartment building that I wanted to promote, and I was ready to talk about it. At the BNI meeting in the morning, a visitor walked in who was a general contractor. This was during the real estate boom. a general contractor from California who was looking to buy land to build custom homes. Okay. Well, I had some listings that hadn't hit the market yet of some, custom home lots that were ready to go that were ideal for this guy. So he walked in to the meeting. I actually spoke with him and I introduced him to a handyman, a carpet cleaner, and one other member from my chapter that were good potential networking partners for him. Didn't talk about myself at all as a real estate agent, other than handing him my card and letting him know that's what I did, but I asked him questions about what he did, took him to the information table, gave testimonials, and then introduced him to those people. Well, guess what? When it came my turn during the BNI meeting to talk about a good referral for me, I didn't talk about selling the apartment building that I was planning on talking about. I gave a very compelling vision of these beautiful custom home lots that were ready to go, so on and so forth. Make a long story short, I wound up selling that particular contractor over $1 million of vacant land. It was awesome. Guess who invited the visitor? You'll never guess. It was a chocolate truffle maker. Okay, nothing to do with real estate or anything like that. But her brother is a general contractor from California. Invited him to the meeting. He only came to one meeting, and it brought together some of these different concepts in the form of an example. So hopefully that is motivating as to how these things can work. And then as we're talking about converting visitors into members, following up with a phone call, thank you note. I know that somebody mentioned send out cards earlier, whether it be a send out card or a handwritten note. Following up will definitely increase your closing ratio for visitors. Okay, so we'll just wrap it up with what we have at the bottom of the page. Be enthusiastic and authentically interested in learning about the visitor and then sharing how the power teams in the group can be an ongoing source of new business. And remember, as a power team networker, you're a leader in many ways, not just creating referrals, but by building connections. And when the other people in the chapter see you giving testimonials at the information table and introducing the visitor to people in the chapter, your VCP goes up the confidence curve. Okay, you earn points with the rest of the group by performing as a leader when it comes to visitors and converting visitors.